Hey ladies, welcome back to Somebody Come Listen to This podcast. This is your host, Naba. If you're new here, welcome. Please come on in and hit that subscribe button for me to help the channel out. And let's get into this topic, y'all, of men fighting against the patriarchy. Right now, there is not a lot of men who are fighting against the patriarchy, and they should. There are so many reasons why men should feel an urgent need to start fighting for women's rights. They don't realize it is few men out here who realize what's going on. But for the men who don't realize that fighting against women's rights is only going to push society into extinction faster, because women don't have rights. When women don't have rights, the planet goes downhill. The planet goes into extinction. Women stop birthing children, and they try to start forcing us to birth children, and women cannot birth children in environments that are not conducive to their nature. Like, it is not in women's nature to be just subjugated up under men's laws and not have the resources that they need to care for their children and work all of their lives hard and not even get to raise their children the way that they should be raised. We are in a patriarchy that teaches boys that all things feminine is bad. And there are some men out here that are speaking against patriarchy because they realize that patriarchy is hurting them, it's hurting their health, it's hurting women, it's hurting children, it's destroying the entire planet. So I just wish that more men would listen to these men, but men don't know. They don't know that they're hurting themselves by not listening to these men, and especially not listening to women, because women naturally want to be communal and they don't want to go to war. They want to help everybody in the best way possible. I'm not saying all women, but when women are left to their natural, devices, women make wiser decisions. Like when it comes to people overall on the planet, for the children, for the planet, for men. If y'all haven't seen the Barbie movie, y'all should go watch the Barbie movie, because it is a matriarchal society, and the men, they actually see that in Barbie world that it is the way that it should be. At the end, the men that come from the patriarchy are happy to let go of it because they were so tired of just working and being males, being violent, being like just sex crave, just being just like the way that society, the patriarchy, teaches them that they should be. And also, I just started watching Siren. I think it's on Hulu, but I have like breaking cable. So I'm watching Siren. It's about mermaids who come to live on land, and in the water, the mermaids are also matriarchal. And it's not a lot of male mermaids, which in nature, it should be more females than males. Even the Bible speaks about it being 7 females to 1 male. Not saying that one male is going to have all 7 of those females. It's just saying that should be the ratio for the planet to balance out. Right now, we have way more men on the planet, and with patriarchy, which isn't natural. This planet used to be matriarchal. If y'all study that, if y'all go back and read the books before they burn them all, you'll see that. But with more men being on the planet, they're hoarding all the resources. Everything that should be free to us to survive, they're hoarding it and making the price for it so high. They're turning the food into a weapon. They're turning water into weapons. They're turning natural medicines, which is food, into a weapon by making it GMO. So when we eat it, our bodies are not getting the nutrients that we need to heal themselves. Because look what's going on in California. I think it's Monsanto, where they're making all of the GMO foods. I myself personally, when I go to shop for fruits and vegetables, I do not buy fruits and vegetables from California. I drink wine. I do not drink wine from California. I have to have like imported wine. It has to be from somewhere else other than California. So those are just choices that I make in my life. But yeah, men are out here talking, and they are seeing the era of men's ways. And if men, like, overall don't start standing up and fighting for women, we are headed to an extinction faster. Stats are saying it, like Chat GPT is saying it. You can Google this stuff. You can read about it, why we're headed to extension because everything has been flipped. We've been lied to, and women are really supposed to be the leaders. We're supposed to be in a matriarchy. Men don't want to give over that power, and power that greed and that hunger for power is what is leading us to war with other nations for no reason. We see what's going on with this presidency. Trump is the president. This is 2025, and we are headed to a quick extinction. We see what MAGA is doing. This is not going to be good for society. This is not going to be good for the world. And if men don't stand up and fight alongside the women that they call feminists and hate so much, it's just not going to work out in their favor. It's already not working out in their favor. That is why they're doing this. They're trying to force laws to favor them, especially white males. They're trying to force laws on people to favor them. They're trying to get rid of people so they can have an advantage. And it's not going to work anymore because they're not progressing. They're regressing. They're going back, which is not going to work. It's just not. The planet will just explode and just cease to exist before it goes back. Mother Nature is upset. The weather is like telling us that Mother Nature is sick of their shit. Women are upset and sick of their shit, but women know that they outnumber us, and women know that we need more of them on our side if we're going to course correct and get this planet moving in the right direction. If we sit back and we watch what Trump is doing and we just allow him to do this with all of these men, and some women are even doing it because they don't know that they are causing their own destruction. They feel like they're helping their own race. So they're going to help these men just cause havoc on the planet. If we sit back and we let Trump complete Project 2025, it's going to be hard to, we won't be able to come out of that. Once he completes everything he's trying to do and men just sit back and watch and women just sit back and watch, we will not be able to reverse it. The planet, the country will be on a downhill slope. It's like you won't be able to put the toothpaste back in the tube. They've already voted him in. We can't put that back in the tube. But he's like at 50% of Project 2025. It's almost 50% complete. If we let it get to 60, 70, 80, 90, it's no going back. The planet is gone. So everybody, that's why they don't like they criminalized or like made the term woke a negative thing, but it's not. They're scared of change, and men are scared that they're going to lose power to other men. But no, like their power needs to be taken by women, and that can't happen unless men help women, and men realize that when women are in power, we are not the same. We are not going to be trying to hoard resources and go to war and be in a pyramid where it's one group of people on top of all the other people. It's 3% of people at the top and everybody else is below them and get less. It won't be like that in a world with women. Men are tired of working hard. Women are tired of working hard. Kids are having to work as soon as they get out of high school until they die. Everybody's tired of this system of patriarchy and capitalism. So unless people start listening to women, protecting women's rights, right now, you don't see many men at all or any men fighting for women's rights, bodily autonomy, women's right to do what they need to do to survive. Like you're not seeing men fight for, healthy food like that we can get at a reasonable price. We shouldn't even have to go to the grocery store for our food. We should be able to grow our own food. But there are many laws and many states that are preventing people from actually growing food the way they want to. They're putting all kind of stipulations on you growing your own food. Even if you have a farm, you have to go through so many hoops and hurdles because they want to be able to control everything. So let's get into this video. It'll probably be a pretty long one, so I'm gonna stop talking and I'll be in and out with my commentary after this.
I've got a sincere question for all the women out there, and I mean this. This is a very sincere question, and it pertains to patriarchy. How do you see men fighting against or standing up against this system? That's my question. Now, let me tell you why I asked this. This morning, I came across a couple of videos in which one of them was a husband and wife talking about this system, and they seemed to have become more on equal terms as far as understanding the discrepancy between the way they view the system. And there's this other one this man was responding to, this woman who was talking about how there's a shift going on, which I relish in that fact. I love that there is a shift in this movement, this system, not because I'm inherently anti-structure, but because I'm pro self-empowerment. And in my healing journey, I speak about that as vulnerable as I can, about how my surrendering to control has led to way more power within. That to me is a shift of consciousness. That to me is how you stand up to the system. The system of patriarchy is a compliance, it's complicity. Whereas my movement, my self-empowering movement, is all about letting go, relinquishing control. And I find more power within that. That's my version of fighting the system. But I see this a lot in comments and in sentiments. And even in that video I was talking about the husband and wife talking, she said, more men don't stand up to it. That's my question. That's why I'm asking. What is it you see men doing to fight that system? I want to be the change. That's my version of fighting the system. But let's say there's those men holding up the signs, your body, my choice, which is abhorrent. It's disgusting. But it shows a prevailing weakness in these men's consciousness. And that's what I think needs to happen, a complete shift of consciousness. That's how the system tumbles. Now, watching this power shift is, to me, I'm relishing in it. It's going to take more than beration or awareness. It takes, if I am right, it takes an obscene amount of healing. But to you, what is it that you see men, how do you see men fighting this system? Sincerely.
But for my ladies, please understand this. Those of us men who are deconstructing patriarchy understand on a conscious and unconscious level the privilege that we have in this world. And it's not going to help us as people who have chosen to deconstruct when we're attempting to share something with you and you still find a way to punch us down. It makes it very hard to develop relationship with you and to build community. We need to get over the fact, okay, we are addressing patriarchy. Now let's continue to grow into who we can be beyond that. Instead of our whole entire identity being, I hate men, I hate men, I hate men. Because what happens when healthy men come into your life?
I'm going to stop right here and just say this is the problem we're going to run into. Men wanting to be in relationships and coming into women's lives in 2025, I think needs to just stop. Like, if these men are not going to get up and show women that they're willing to fight for their rights in this world, fight for our lives, fight for their children's lives, and protect women, they should not be trying to come into women's lives. They should leave women alone and go into the lives of other men and strategize and figure out how y'all are going to tear down this system and rebuild it.
Blame for you running those relationships, but you and your inability to get over the fact that you hate men who traumatize you and who are ignorant. And you've created so much space in your life to hate those men that you don't have any room to love men who will be there for you. And you might end up disrespecting them. You might end up mistreating them. And then they will leave because those men have no intention of hurting you back. Those men know themselves enough to understand that we're all on our own journeys and we are all living at the mercy of the intention that we put into our decisions and our life every single day. So, mind you, this is not me attempting to neglect how difficult it is to love and appreciate men. As somebody who's been on my own patriarchal healing journey, I've lost so many peers and male friends and access to male community just for standing on this side of life. But as for somebody who knows I'm not a traditional patriarchal male, I know it's more important for me to heal and grow on this newer side of my life and become a man from here rather than attempt to force myself in a box that is patriarchy and then hate my life and take that out onto everybody else in my life. Whether it's the women I'm pursuing, whether it's the family that I end up having, whether it's the community that I end up living in and impacting. I understand how much of my responsibility it is. And patriarchy is something that allows us as men to neglect the immense amount of responsibility that comes with being a man. The only thing that I can add on to that is I genuinely want to be in community or relationship with women who are also taking care of themselves in the same way, freeing themselves from the illusions of patriarchy, but also willing to believe in and see there are men who are willing to be a part of this team, a part of this, not just in a relationship with me because they're smart. They're willing to be a part of a community that I can benefit from as a woman, as a non-binary, as a child, as a elder, as a... So even if these people aren't directly benefiting from me and my individual masculinity, they're benefiting from the collective conscious energy frequency of masculinity that we're upholding, that carries a standard of respect, of love, of appreciation, of care, of intention. But we can't create that community if we're still holding on to our deep hatred, whether it's from social, it's from existential problems, or it's from our individual trauma that is stopping us from truly having the capacity to love this version of men who is still struggling to become on the other side of patriarchy. Because existing in patriarchy just allows us to be like, hey, lady, you're making me uncomfortable, shut the fuck up. Instead of, lady, I'm uncomfortable in this conversation, and it's because I'm attempting to communicate with you. Yes, I'm trying, and I'm what for me may feel like a leap from the earth to the moon in developing my awareness as a man apart from or against patriarchy may seem like a baby step for you as a woman who has to live constantly, like your whole life, on the other side of patriarchy. But please, 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 please have some grace. Please, please, please. Because there's so much more that I, as a man, have to offer on the other side of patriarchy, on the other side of all that. And as it is lonely leaving the male, traditional patriarchal male community to get to that space, there needs to be some kind of reception in this new world. Because not having, I'll conclude this video by saying this, not having, whether it's people or a community or something to receive these men, and it can't just be men, it has to be all types of people to show us like, hey, we need you men to be a part of this community. Instead of like, oh, you man, come here and help us healed men. We're all just going to create this cult of healed men and just start convincing ourselves that we're better than these other guys because we don't hit women or something. Like that should already be a standard. We're trying to get men to become more than the patriarchy so they can become a part of a community, whatever community aligns with who they are, and one that they can support foundationally, just being the man that they are and aligning with their truth. Whether that's that as a masculine man, it's that as a gay man, it's that as a transitioning or a transgender man. But how can we as men break ourselves from the patriarchy to realize we are human beings, and then we're men, and then we, in knowing what men we are, present that to the world and align with communities that are willing to support the actualization of that man we are becoming? So ladies, honestly, you don't have to take any of the advice I gave you ever, I'm telling you. But the one thing that I'll give is, if men are disrespecting you, just leave them. If men are doing you wrong, if men are not treating you to the level that you deserve, don't engage in argument and on any of that bullshit. Say, decide the value that you have, decide the standard that other people need to respect that at, and be willing to let people go who aren't willing to commit to that. Because I guarantee you there are people that are. And I guarantee you there are people that are healing beyond patriarchy. I guarantee you there are people that are healing beyond their childhood trauma, that are really desiring to become great men in this life. But it's going to be so important for those non-males and those non-traditional males to hold space in our hearts to receive these men who are still so, so, so young in this journey of intelligence. Because patriarchy keeps us ignorant to save itself. It's like a parasite that's so properly invested in the host body it convinces the host mind that the parasite is an essential function of the body and not an outside alien force that is negatively infecting the growth of the body. So let me know what you think about that. Women, I love you guys. We're living in a world that wants to break us up. The masculine, the feminine, men, women, everybody in between, just destroy our ability to have relationship with each other, because great communities and great culture comes on the other end of that. And capitalism has to control that for shareholder profit, not for the well-being of the collective. Too bad I'm a retail working loser, because I only care about the people.
Every single time we say that, well, men created patriarchy, they deserve to suffer under it, we actually perpetuate more patriarchy. Every single man alive was born into this system. He did not create it. And most of them unwillingly perpetuate it every single day, not realizing that it also oppresses them. There was always supposed to be a balance between the masculine and the feminine. And right now, there is too much masculine. And every time we say that men deserve to suffer, we drive a further divide between that balance. The masculine is about doing, the feminine is about being. But the masculine comes to the feminine in order to have a softness provided to them so that they can continue to provide. But when a woman or a feminine says you deserve to suffer, then a man no longer sees the feminine as a safe refuge. He then puts up more masculine armor to protect himself from the feminine instead of protecting the feminine from other outside dangers. Men need a reprieve from the protection, from the providing for us. But when we say they deserve to suffer, they no longer see us as a safe space to come get that reprieve. They see us as just as problematic, and they see us as just as big a threat as the things that they were supposed to be protecting us from. And none of this excuses poor behavior from men, none of it. But we have to admit where women are also wrong. And for women, it is not easy for us to do that. I have been abused by plenty of men. That doesn't change the fact that my husband of 12 years is still trying to help dismantle patriarchy, is still trying to find safety within me, and I should still provide that to him. Making men suffer for a system they did not put in place and they didn't realize was actually oppressing them as well isn't the fucking answer. And I know what it feels like to be full of revenge and say, I have suffered, so everybody else should too. But that is not how we recreate the balance between the masculine and the feminine. If we want men to give over their power to women, I'm sorry, we have to make them feel safe enough to do it. And right now, they don't feel fucking safe to do it, which is why they continue to hoard the power, which is why they continue to believe that them having all the power is safer than giving it to women. This is such a complicated dynamic. There's so much nuance in all of this. But at the end of the day, if we continue to say men deserve to suffer the way that women have suffered, we will never see a balance of actual masculine and feminine energy within our lifetime. And the simple answer to all of this is men need to learn how to offload their power by going to women and humbling themselves and saying, I need help. I can't do all of this alone. And women need to rise into the power that the man is trying to give to them and say, I am a safe place for you to be softer. Give your power to me.
So I see a lot of comments from men talking about how the patriarchy doesn't exist and it's actually men who are oppressed. So let's take a minute to explain what's going on and what the reality is. So let's put ourselves in the shoes of Bob here. Bob is a genuine guy who really does believe that men and women are equal and are born that way. Now, as Bob goes through life, he begins to perceive women getting a number of advantages that don't apply to him. They don't get drafted, they get to stay at home, there are specific loans for female-owned businesses, and so what Bob sees is women pulling far ahead, leaving men way behind. And as Bob takes a broader look, including men and women from various different groups across society, he sees that same pattern. Everybody is born equal, but he perceives the Overwatch folks getting specific advantages. And the Star Wars group with more money and political power get more advantages. And then the women in those groups get those same advantages we talked about before. And before you know it, poor Bob is at the back of the class looking at everybody else getting ahead and feeling like men are thoroughly disadvantaged. The reality is very different. While we may think we're all equal, the circumstances into which you are born will already greatly affect the opportunities that are available to you in life. For the vast majority of history, Bob here has been the only one that could acquire wealth, property, and power. The rights for everybody else for those things are less than 5 to 6 generations old. Their grandparents' grandparents started a race that this dude has been crushing for centuries. The end result is that it looks a little more like this, where certain men are less advantaged than particular women, and certain women are more advantaged than other women. But make no mistake, Bob here still has the lion's share of advantage. Now for Bob, this feels wrong because he too struggled to make ends meet. He doesn't feel advantaged, and there's certainly a lot of people who feel more advantaged than him, such as the wealthy sharks who are way ahead of everybody, and for whom laws are just sort of more of a suggestion. But simply because there are people who are more advantaged than you does not mean that you yourself have not enjoyed the benefits of certain privileges. And there may also be ways in which what you think are privileges are not actually. We've already covered how stay-at-home parenting is not necessarily an advantage, but an economic disadvantage. And there are more subtle ways in which these advantages show up that might not be obvious. For instance, men are more likely to complete treatment programs for substance use because these programs do not provide daycare, disproportionately affecting women who more often have kids, causing them to drop out and not be able to get the treatment that they need. I feel the fear for men is if they accept this reality, then they have to keep their heads bowed and apologize for all of the sins of their ancestors, and that's not really the goal here. The goal is, as we continue the modern work of dismantling these patriarchal systems, by better understanding how they harm and disadvantage select groups, including men, we can provide better solutions that end that harm. But if we start by denying reality, then the solutions we offer are no good because they're not fixing a real problem. Meanwhile, the very real harm done to all groups, including men, will just continue.
This is why living in a patriarchy sucks for men too. So before I get started, I want you to know my mom has a degree in psychology, in early childhood education, and over 20 years of experience. So we were talking together how anger manifests in the brain. And what happens is that if you're sad and you feel like you can't feel sad, the secondary emotion is anger. And if over time you suppress your sadness and the tears, then you will just immediately go to anger. Sadness will not be a reaction that you'll get. It's just straight anger. And we were saying how a lot of women will cry when they're angry, and a lot of men will just physically express their anger, which is why women are scared of men are scared of men, wars, and all that stuff. So she worked for over 20 years with children from 2 to 5 years old. And she said from 2, 3, 4 years old, they were the most criers. Girls would kind of like cry and then get over it, and boys were really vulnerable. And she would often hear the parents tell their kids, don't cry. This is not something you should cry about. But as they got older, they got more violent, physical, or loud. Some of them wouldn't cry, but would walk away and get like very angry, visibly angry. So my dad joins this conversation and he was like, I don't think that my dad ever told me not to be sad or not to cry. And I'm like, but society told you not to. I even told him, I'm like, in my lifetime with you, I've seen you cry once. When crying is a natural human emotion. Every single baby cries, but there's an age that we tell ourselves we're not supposed to cry. The people who don't cry, there's a moment in their life that they're like, nope, I can't do this. It's weak. I don't want people to see me like that. And even the people who do cry, like me, if we're in public, we're going to apologize. We're going to be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't be crying. We all know that collectively, if we lived in a matriarchy, we would welcome crying and vulnerability. We'd be like, feel the emotions, go through it. And here's the thing, when you cry, crying is healing. And we kind of all know that. If you have a good cry at home, you feel better after. And everything is like released. We don't hold on and redirect that to anger. Why it sucks for men is because it's still more acceptable for women. Even if we're embarrassed about it, it is more acceptable. And you are weak if you are a crying man, which is really sad in the end. So, yeah.
Oh, 100%. Well, we can go back further than that because the concept I'm speaking on is patriarchy. It's this long-held idea that men have to exist in these ways. Early men 2,000 years ago said, no. If we going to be men, this is how we going to exist. We not going to cry. We not going to show no weakness. We going to paper chase. We going to be about that money. We going to get it. We got to get all the women we want. We got to have the women. We got to get those. And it's a whole bunch of other rules that say this is what a man is. This is how a man's supposed to exist. I mean, we're going back thousands of years here. And we are still today trying to live up to those standards of people who society was different back then. Let's say that was necessary back then. It is not necessary now. Look at the suicide rates of men. Look at the health issues of men. Being in a high state of anxiety consistently releases cortisol in your body, which causes higher rates of heart disease. Like, why is it that we're pigeonholed into having to work ourselves to death with no outlet, with no way to ask somebody for help, with no way to say, I'm hurting, I'm sad? Why are we pigeonholed into that situation? And a lot of men will stay that way because they are not in a room with somebody giving them permission and telling them that it's okay to be emotional. It's okay to express yourself however you choose to. And I will go so far as to say, because there's a big dialogue and a big reality of you've shared with your partner before and they used it against you at some point. They brought up your vulnerabilities and used them against you. This is going to be a hard pill to swallow for some of y'all. You're not supposed to, but you can. I'm not here to guarantee outcomes of what it looks like when you express that emotion and when you are vulnerable. I'm not here to say that the world will embrace you, because I know if I go to the basketball court and I tell my homies I'm hurting today, I'm in pain because, my dog is in the hospital. You still finna get these threes, bro. You know what I'm saying? You shouldn't have came to the court if you was gonna be hurting. Like men are as much critics as women are. We all have a package of that system that said men are supposed to be like this. So internally, we try to be like that, and externally, women expect us to be like that, and even kids expect the same thing because they see one way of mommy acting and one way of daddy acting, and we just all embedded in that system.
Current favorite trend on the videos about patriarchy is men coming out of nowhere and saying, oh, there's no patriarchy, it's only the oligarchy, that's why the things are the way they are now, it's not because of patriarchy. And it's just like, is it possible two things could be true at the same exact time? Because an oligarchy is a small number of people having control over a government, an institution, or a country. And it's like, is it possible that those small group of people are men? Meaning it would be patriarchy because it is men, and it would be oligarchy because it is a small group of men. Again, two things can be true at the same exact time. And yes, there are some women who are part of that small group who are doing things that are upholding the system, but it does not mean the system was not built for men by men. And there's no real gender war because it is women and men dying at the hands of men and systems created by men.
The patriarchy, which is a system of male dominance of society.
Yeah, but that's not my sense of the patriarchy.
So what's yours?
Well, in what sense is our society male-dominated?
The fact that the vast majority of wealth is owned by men, the vast majority of capital is owned by men. Women do more unpaid labour.
A very tiny proportion of men, and a huge proportion of people who are seriously disaffected are men. Most people in prison are men. Most victims of violent crime are men. Most people who die in wars are men. People who do worse in school are men. It's like, where's the dominance here precisely? What you're doing is you're taking a tiny substrata of hyper-successful men and using that to represent the entire structure of Western society. There's nothing about that that's vaguely appropriate.
Here's how patriarchy controls and harms men. You may hear that patriarchy privileges men and that makes you feel upset and frustrated because you're unhappy. That's because while you do get some privileges, the patriarchy is a system that is constantly attacking your masculinity. You are not allowed to do anything except be angry and work. Going to coffee shops is for girls. Using soap makes you gay. Anything but NASCAR sports and Marvel and Star Wars are for chicks. Buying clothes is gay. Being attractive to women is gay. Having a little sweet treat is for pussies. You are not allowed to do anything without feeling a hit to your masculinity. And that constant, low-grade antagonism, those relentless attacks erode your self-esteem, make you insecure, and make you vulnerable to your own frustration. Because technically, men aren't supposed to feel anything but anger. So when you deny having any other feeling, when you have that feeling invariably, you don't have any skills to deal with it. Because having emotional skills, going to therapy, doing any kind of introspection is for chicks and gays. You don't even get to learn how to deal with your anger because angry outbursts are masculine. So you are trained by the patriarchy to be a ticking time bomb. That means all the people around you wrap you in foam, walk on eggshells, do everything they can to keep from setting you off. And that turns you into an agent of the patriarchy and the status quo. You blow up on people when they don't follow the rules, when they don't give you what you want. You are programmed to have a low tolerance for distress. That's why you're always resentful. That's why you're always frustrated. That's why you're scared, and you're not allowed to admit you're scared. And that also means because everyone is ensconcing you in foam, no one can touch you. Being caressed is for women and queer. Children are held. Sex is reduced to the orgasm and nothing else. No intimacy is allowed. Intimacy is for chicks and queers. You are systematically denied happiness. You exist to work and protect the system that abuses you. You have been systematically denied healthy masculinity and instead assigned a toxic masculinity that keeps everyone at arm's length. I am so sorry that this is happening to you. If I could snap my fingers and save you, I would. You deserve to be held. You deserve to be spoken to honestly. You deserve a little sweet treat. You deserve to look cute. And you deserve to feel emotions other than anger. But you have the power to change it. It's just gonna feel worse before it feels
Women
better.
are literally driving the human race towards extinction at the moment in the biggest case of fuck around and find out the world has ever seen, by refusing to have kids because they don't like the way men treat women and they don't like the way that society treats mothers. And so they're like, you know what, instead of having kids and continuing the human race, let's just go extinct. Like, let's just all go extinct. And this isn't only happening in South Korea. I don't know if you saw that report a few weeks ago that said that for the 4th year in a row, the birth rate there was dangerously low compared to the death rate. And if that continues, you end up with loads of old people and not enough young people to support them and support the economy. And then you have fewer women in each generation and fewer of them are having kids. And then eventually you go extinct. And when they're asking women in South Korea, why are you doing this? In part, they're saying they don't like men. They don't like the way that men treat them. And they're like, why would I have a kid with this idiot? Like, why would I breed from this idiot? Why would I pass this idiot's DNA on? I don't care if you say that we're going to go extinct. Like, I don't care if my uterus is all that stands between, like, us and extinction. I'm not doing it. It's not worth it for me. So I'm not going to do it. And this is happening everywhere. Like, they reckon that by the year 2050, 75% of nations will be in the same situation. And by 2100, the year 2100, it'll be 97% of nations. Because women are refusing to have kids because we're sick of this crap. Like, in my country at the moment, in Britain, the average birth rate is 1.5 children per woman. And it needs to be 2.1. And it's set to plummet to 1.3. And the same thing is going to happen in the US. Because women just don't want to have any kids. And I can see why. It's because forever we have been told that all we're good for is having children, but also that that's not really that important because it still doesn't make us the default gender. It still doesn't make us the important gender. It's men who get to earn all the money and have all the fun. They're the ones who get to keep all of their leisure time. They're the ones who get to own most of the world's land and speak most of the world's words. Because we're just women and mothers and that's not that important. And so why would we do it? Like, why would we do it? What's the incentive here? Because women actually know that having children takes a massive toll on our physical health and our mental health, and that we're then expected to live our lives in servitude to these children, to these future worker bees, so that they can take care of the aging population. And our entire lives will be changed by having a child. But we're also constantly told that that's not that important, but that's all we are, but that's not important. And so we're looking at the situation and we're like, why would I do this? I'd rather put a backpack on and go traveling. I don't care if we go extinct. Like why would I do this? Where's the incentive? There isn't one. We're not even appreciated for doing it. Like, we're actually, like, brought down for doing it. Why would we do it? Why not instead just go out there and explore this world and live our lives? And that's what more and more women are doing. They're making the decision to do that instead. So here's the thing. If you don't want to go extinct, you better beg us to start having kids and you better make it worth our while. Like, that's the only solution here. That's the only way that we get out of this mess. Women need to be recognized for their importance, not just in terms of having children, but everything glorious that they bring to this world. Because we've been told for all this time that, like, it's not us, it's not you, you're not the important ones, like you guys aren't the key workers here. And now actually we're seeing that we are the key workers, and actually we are vitally important for the continuation of the human race. And before anybody jumps up in here and is like, well, then you guys are selfish, why don't you just take one for the team and sacrifice your physical and mental health to have children? Like, what, they just do that. The human race depends on it. This isn't our fault. It's yours. It's society's fault, and society has been run by men for all these years, and you have left us feeling underappreciated and unvalued for everything that we have to offer, including having children and raising them and raising the next generation. And we just don't want to do it anymore. And we're not gonna. Fuck around and find out.
Majority of black men don't actually want to dismantle the patriarchy entirely, because in some ways it benefits them, whether they know it consciously or subconsciously. Let me cook. When it comes to racism, yes, black men, they do face racism. Oh yeah, the white man always trying to keep a brother down, this, that, and the third. Which is fine, fair, and valid. However, once we start crossing over to sexism, that's when their brains get to glitching. When the patriarchy says that black men are thugs, black men are always absent fathers, black men are always in jail, they don't like that shit. However, when it comes to ideologies that also came from the fucking patriarchy, for example, women are supposed to have low body counts, women are supposed to be at home barefoot and pregnant. Not only do they agree, they also enforce it. And that's why I say they don't want to dismantle the patriarchy entirely. That's why I don't take none of these Pan-African Dr. Umars and Hebrew Israelites seriously, because they are always full of shit. It's pretty much the same exact thing as when white women say, oh yeah, girl power, this, that, and the third. However, when sexism starts crossing over to racism, that's when their brains get to glitching as well. That's why I don't say I am a feminist. I am a womanist.
Just stop, right? Just stop and listen. If you want to know the results of thousands of years of not listening to women, read the news. There's something called patriarchy you should look up. Patriarchy is what has given us the destruction, the almost total destruction of the world that we now live in, its authoritarian political systems, and a number of other messes. This is what happens when you don't listen, especially when you don't listen to women. So I grew up in, as I've mentioned in other videos, I grew up with a situation of violence. My dad was a batterer, and one of the things that he often did was not listen to my mom. And so she was, brilliant, decisive, a natural leader. She made more money than him and deserved to. She made good decisions, and so he was constantly interrupting her, overriding her, making bad decisions. And I would ask her, why do you listen to him? Why, you clearly know what you're doing. He doesn't. Why are you taking his bad advice? Well, the church that I grew up in said blah, 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 It's just devastating, the effect of that kind of religion, patriarchal religion, on all kinds of situations at home and outside the home. And so they brainwashed her. But there's something as men that's fairly simple that we can do. And it's built around the assumption that we're not always the most important voice in the room, that we're not the smartest voice in the room. And it's this: just listen. Just shut up and listen. In men's groups, we would teach men to monitor themselves for the urge to step in and this is my opinion. No, just hold your opinion, because you might learn something that'll change your opinion. I don't let men do that in my classes. I block them as soon as I see it coming. And fortunately, I have the kind of graduate students that the women usually feel empowered to just keep going. They'll talk right over these guys, or they'll go, I'm speaking, and they'll keep going, or let me finish, or whatever it is. So that's always a joy to see. But talking specifically to the men, just shut up and listen. You can have your say later. Just listen. It's simple. And if you did, the world would be a better place to live in. Thanks.
I love this comment because it strikes on something I've been thinking about a lot lately. How to reach men. With my content, I've noticed that women can quickly and fully empathize with a video. And they do that even when it has nothing to do with women's issues. I could tell you about a robot I made and then it fell off of a balcony and died, and women would be right there empathizing. And they can get there in 30 seconds flat. Men, on the other hand, are raised to be so individualistic that it literally takes me personally engaging with them one-on-one through a series of videos or interactions before they'll empathize with the point. And this is by design, because abuse works best in isolation. Men kinda hate it when women talk to each other about their relationships because that's how the abuse gets uncovered. Similarly, men are taught to be individual and silent because if men start talking, we'll start noticing the abuse that the system does to us. The thing that excites me about this is we can take this and turn it into a practical strategy to educate men. We have to start by working with men one-on-one, providing good male role models for them, and we have to do that until there's a critical mass of good men in media representing healthy masculinity in media. And that's where the dominoes start to fall. Once healthy masculinity becomes normalized in mass media, it'll become easier to reach men in a broadcast manner. But that also means that this generation is going to be a lot of work. One-on-one work, healing men individually.
The woman was on the podcast and she said that a number of men believe that a matriarchy is just a patriarchy inverse, and that's not the case. A matriarchy is a space that is a completely different system of operations where children belong to everybody, where spirit is centered, and where self-esteem, self-worth, and self-value is not attributed to your ability to dehumanize, but it's attributed to your ability to collaborate.
Yeah. The patriarchy has definitely been men's undoing. And a big part of it has been framing masculinity in a very narrow and toxic way. And toxic masculinity isn't even about being a man. It's not even about masculinity itself. It's about being trapped in a broken script that confuses silence for strength and control for character. One where we tell little boys, don't cry, man up, never show weakness. And then we collectively act shocked when those little boys grow up to be isolated, angry, and emotionally shut down. And personally, I'm glad that our culture is evolving because what we've been doing so far amounts to emotional malpractice. We haven't been teaching men to be strong. We've been teaching them to be numb. And that kind of bro stoicism isn't really a solution to anything. It just tells us that emotions are dangerous, so we need to suppress them. Or that women are prizes and we need to win them. And other men are a threat, so we need to dominate them. Vulnerability? That's for pussies. And what it does is it turns manhood into a zero-sum game. No friends, no softness, no growth. Just a performance of toughness that isolates us from the world around us. And the worst part of all of this is that men do struggle. With depression, with loneliness, with rejection. But this culture has left them with no tools to cope. Just silence or violence. And to be perfectly frank, toxic masculinity doesn't make men powerful. It makes them disposable. And it certainly doesn't build character, it just buries it. And if we really want men to thrive and be a constructive part of our society, we need to stop teaching them that repression is resilience. And start teaching a version of masculinity that doesn't eat its own.
Bruh, one thing about me, I'm the son of a single mom. I'm the older brother of 2 baby sisters. I'm the nephew to a strong aunt. I'm a grandson to a beautiful grandma. I'm a dad to 2 beautiful girls. And I'm a husband to a beautiful wife. And I'd be damned if I ever let their rights be taken away without me fighting for them. And I don't know about anybody else, but that's just me.
That's hot. Any ladies in here agree that's hot? Right? That's hot.
The problem I have with a lot of specifically black male content creators that talk about dismantling the patriarchy is that they go about it the wrong way. Because far too often what I see is that they focus talking about dismantling the patriarchy with black women rather than talking about dismantling the patriarchy with black men. And yeah, this goes for all races of male content creators. That's a very common theme. Instead of talking to men about dismantling the patriarchy, they talk to women about dismantling the patriarchy. And the way that conversation usually goes, because it just happened recently on this app, is that, oh, women need to help us dismantle the patriarchy. Women need to still hold grace for men dismantling the patriarchy, and things along those lines. And I'm not here to debate the validity of those perspectives or that take. Honestly, I'm not going to say if I agree or disagree with it, but I do think that on this app specifically, it is the wrong way to do it, and generally, it is the wrong way to go about it. Obviously, I think the best way to go about talking about dismantling patriarchy is talking about it with men. Crazy idea, I know. And yet, clearly and obviously, there is a difficulty that a lot of black men and all male creators have talking to men about the patriarchy, about dismantling the patriarchy, because I don't know why they have such difficulty talking about it. I think there's a very easy way to talk about it, and that is to demonstrate how patriarchy, the system, the culture of patriarchy, negatively affects men too. If we just say, hey, the reason that women look for a man who is 6 feet tall and makes 6 figures and has a 6-pack abs is because of patriarchy. So how about we work together as men to dismantle that? Right? We could say the reason that you're dissatisfied with your body is because patriarchy puts unrealistic body standards onto you. We could say the reason that you feel inadequate in your social positioning, that you think you should be higher up, is because the patriarchy told you a lie that you intrinsically deserve to be higher up. We could say the reason that you feel inadequate in your job, that you're not appreciated, that you don't make 6 figures, that you can't talk about it with anyone, that you have to be stoic all the time, is because of patriarchy. We could say those things. The reason that you feel the need to be a breadwinner and have to fight against a system on capitalism, which is already oppressing everyone, the reason that you think that you have to be able to succeed in all of that in order to be a good quote unquote man is because of patriarchy. It's negatively affecting you too. And the reason I say this is because I saw something very similar in the last 20 years of where, specifically with black women hair standards and body standards, how black women on the internet kind of rallied together to fight against those body images that these companies and these advertising campaigns were pushing a specific skin tone, pushing a specific body image, pushing a specific hair look, all that kind of stuff. Like, they rallied together to fight against the images that were placed upon them, which was all part of the patriarchy, right? In the same way, if men look at the unrealistic income standards, the unrealistic body standards, the unrealistic societal standings, right? If we look at that and say, hey, we are just not going to abide by those patriarchal standards, how much farther along will we get in these conversations when it comes to dismantling patriarchy with men? Like, maybe it's just me. Maybe I think it's so easy, but let's talk to men about dismantling patriarchy, not for the sake of anyone else, right? Not say, oh, dismantle patriarchy in order to get something out of it. No, dismantle the patriarchy because it is crushing you. It is destroying your mental health. It is destroying your body. It is destroying all these things a part of you and making you feel less than. So in order to save yourself, let's work together to dismantle patriarchy.
Hey, if you are a man and you don't understand where all of these men have come from, if you're watching this trend and you're hearing these stories and you're hearing these words come out of men's actual mouths and you're surprised and you can't understand because none of your friends would ever treat a woman this way, then you are part of the problem. You're not listening to women. How much time are you spending listening to women? And when women speak, when they share their stories, when they talk about the trauma that they've received in relationship with men, are you actually believing them? Do you believe women when they talk? Or do you find a way to disregard them because it makes you more comfortable? Women have been telling us for years, for decades, maybe even for millennia. I mean, it's been a really long time that women have been trying to tell us that they are in danger, that men are not safe, that men do not treat them well, and men will find every excuse in the book to try to disregard them and discredit them so that they can maintain this sense that men are heroes, men are protectors. They have to maintain this illusion, this perception of manhood, this perception of themselves, so they will disregard all evidence to the contrary. Men are not listening to women enough. When's the last time you watched a movie that centered on women's stories? When's the last time you read a book written by women? When's the last time you intentionally listened to music written by women that tells women's stories? You just don't listen to women enough. You've insulated yourself in a bubble of manosphere. You only listen to other men, you only respect other men, you only ingest stories that are about men, that center men, that emphasize the internal struggles of men. You don't know what women are going through because you're not listening.
Toxic masculinity is not the root of a problem. It is a symptom. As a society, we are confused. We think that the problem is the man, not the system that created him. Toxic masculinity is the symptom of patriarchy. It's the result of a world where a man was told, you have to be everything to everyone. You have to make a certain amount of money or you're a failure. You have to work until you die or you're worthless. And it also taught them that men should have all of the power because women are incapable. So now we have a world where men are hoarding all the power. We have a dynamic between the masculine and the feminine. And we have men who have absolutely no idea what they're supposed to do with all of this power. And this was never supposed to be the life of a man. This imbalance is not a men problem. It is a patriarchy problem. Just like when we treat a headache with Tylenol instead of trying to get to the root cause, we are ignoring the real issue here. Instead of asking, why is this man behaving like this? Or how did we collectively create this problem? We're blaming the man instead of dismantling the structure that created him. If men understood that they were never supposed to have all of the power, if they knew that they could go to women vulnerably and say, I need help, if women could meet men where they are without domination or aggression, the result, if we let it be that way, could be a happier, softer, more creative collective human race. And again, this isn't about fixing men. This is about understanding that there is a much bigger patriarchal problem at play. It's a problem we unintentionally created when we said that men should have all of the power, that there should be a permanent improper balance, and when we assumed that women were incapable of creating just as much as men. This is why I created my program, Cleanup Crew, for men. This program is for men who want to unlearn patriarchal lessons. This is for men who want to learn a more loving, vulnerable, and powerful way of being. This is for men who want more abundance, in money form as well, without the aggression and dominance that they've been taught has to go with it. And this is for the man who wants to feel worthy simply because he exists, not because of what he produces. If you're a man who wants to unlearn dominance and aggression and wants to embrace vulnerability and softness and still wants to have abundance in all of the forms, including money, this program is for you. DM me the word crew to learn more.
And considering what the world is now, with all the misery, conflict, destructive brutality, aggression, and so on, man, he's still as he was. He's still brutal, violent, aggressive, acquisitive, competitive, and he has built a society along these lines.
The most radical acts of rebellion for both men and women in our dysfunctional patriarchal culture are, ready? For women, it is to live as if you are already worthy, without shrinking, apologizing, or asking for permission. And for men, it is to stop performing masculinity as a rejection of the feminine. It is to feel, to protect without control, and to lead without domination. Patriarchy doesn't fall when we scream at it. It falls when we stop playing by its rules. So be the one who remembers what wholeness feels like. That's the revolution. I hope this helps.
I had seen a TikTok of a woman who was giving advice to other women about men. The first thing she says is, what women need to know about men is that men need to feel needed. And then men flooded the comment section and were like, oh, this lady gets it. Why don't other women understand? We need to feel needed. And I remember thinking, why do men need an invitation to show up in their lives? I look around the world and I think, holy crap, there are so many needs. I'm needed. I automatically know that I'm needed. And then I just start to apply my talent, skills, ability. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got hands and a brain and a wallet. I can start applying my resources to the needs I see. I don't need anyone to invite me to that. Are men not looking at their communities, at their neighbors, at their friends?
I mean, if they were, how would we have ended up here? Right? Like, think about who had the policy decision-making power. I walked into our city hall the other day. Every single mayor of the city, going back 200 years, was a man. Like, how do we end up with this place that we live in that has so many gaps in community if men were seeing community? Okay, yeah. Every system is perfectly designed for the result it's currently getting.
Ooh.
And we have gotten a system built by men who saw the world through their own lens and prioritized their own needs and not the global community.
Ooh.
Somebody says, I need to feel needed. They are only seeing themselves.
I have a follow-up question on that subject. Did you ever feel like there was a time that you felt like you needed to be needed?
Oh,
like, I
yeah.
want to be. It seems like knowing you for as long as I've known you, that was a season of your life where you didn't realize you were wantable.
That's
you could
correct.
be wanted.
No, not for who I really am. I think a lot of men think that they might be wanted for what they can offer.
Mhm.
But again, this is a narrative and a myth cycled by men to other men about both what is desirable and what is necessary, because we never listen to women. You're missing for half the population's insight on what is valuable. You're going to miss some really key things. I thought to be a man meant that you needed to be needed.
You are needed.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a well-resourced person to be able to offer the world something.
Mm-hmm.
As a woman, most of my life, of a great period of my life, I wish I was less needed. It never occurs to me to think,
Yeah.
I hope somebody needs me. I've always felt like, oh my, I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I wish I was needed less.
So that's a key, though, because I think from a man's perspective, whether we know it or not, our version of being needed is connected to transaction that we will then get comfort. I need an opportunity to prove my worth to then earn the thing I really want, which is belonging.
Which is a transaction.
Yes.
It's a completely transactional way of looking
Exactly.
at the world.
We don't know how to connect with our emotions. We don't know how to be vulnerable. Out of our own wound, we want to be comforted.
Infantilizes men. I can't understand why we have all of this alpha male content and all of this like chest beating when patriarchy itself puts men in the position of being dealt with like they're toddlers. I just had an offhand comment that inspired this thought because I was thinking about how I've worked for really sensitive men in leadership over the course of my life in a lot of moments that I've had to know how to massage their ego in order to even get a point to land in a way that they could hear it. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm terrible at that. I'm very bad at it because I have the luxury at home with my husband of having conversations with him and being very direct and to the point because he knows that I am obsessed with him. I don't have to worry about his fifis before I say something, before we do something. I know that he is in charge of his feelings because he is a whole ass adult. He knows he is in charge of his feelings. But I care about his emotional well-being, and so I'm not going to try and intentionally say something that's mean either. And so that provides the psychological safety required to be able to have those direct conversations. But if you can't be direct with somebody and the way you said it is the reason why they're not going to hear what you said, even though the thing that you're saying is valid, just because it's an inconvenient truth or an uncomfortable truth because it makes you feel something about yourself, because you feel a sense of shame when that thing comes in, because if it's something that you've done that's hurt someone or is bad for an organization or any myriad of things that somebody might bring forward that has been shot down time and again because patriarchy and white supremacy uphold themselves by saying, well, it's not what you said, it's how you said it that makes you the problem for bringing up the problem. It's never that. It's the fact that you brought up the problem and they don't want to hear it. They want you to suffer silently. But in that process, they basically make it to where it's like, oh, these men, They can't handle it. They can't handle the truth. But that's literally the opposite of what they're trying to say. They're trying to say they're so in control and so dominant by basically saying that they are incapable of dealing with inconvenient truths. So they're toddlers. They're emotionally stunted and held back. That's horrible. And then guess what? The whole result is they end up emotionally stunted and held back because they're not forced to deal with discomfort. They're not forced to sit and have an uncomfortable conversation with someone who said something that made them feel something that they don't know how to deal with. They don't know how to come forward and say that. And guess what? In order to have community, you have to be able to do that. But we're so used to seeing community cults that just kick people out the second that they have an uncomfortable exchange because they don't know how to have a difficult conversation and they're not willing to even ponder for a fraction of a second that the cause of the discomfort could be something that they did, because their comfort must be protected at all costs. But we only do that for children. So tell me how I am wrong.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but men's mental health and the liberation of women are directly intertwined. Almost every single complaint men have of women is directly tied to the patriarchy. Men's mental health is a crisis because of the patriarchy. I fully believe that women freeing themselves and decentering men will lead to better mental health outcomes for men. It would allow men to heal, form community in which we desperately need, and develop their emotional intelligence, freed from the shackles of the patriarchy and what's holding us down. Because until women are free and the patriarchy dismantled, men will be basically imprisoned by their narrow view of masculinity and doomed to eternal pain and suffering.
Something interesting about when I walk into an office where it's mostly men versus an office where it is just all women. When it's an office of mostly men, there's much more of a hierarchy kind of vibe. It's like a yes chef, he's the boss kind of vibe. When it's an office of mostly women, there tends to be more of a communal sort of response. It's like, yeah, she's the manager, or she's the boss, but the boss will then turn around and get like input from all of the other workers. And it's much more of everybody's on the same playing field. It's like everybody's on the same level. And I don't know if this has ever been studied, but it's just an interesting phenomenon that I've noticed.
If you're a man who voted for Harris and are trying to figure out how to support the women in your life, here's what you do. Number 1, get a vasectomy. It's virtually pain-free, quick, and reversible. It's much more safe than anything your wife could ever get done. Number 2, bump up that life insurance on yourself, because if anything happens to you, the women in your life will be covered. Also, get a living trust. Not a will, a living trust. Your family will end up paying way less money in court fees and lawyer fees. This is the best chance of having all of your hard-earned money going directly into their pockets once you're gone. Go onto Donald Trump's social media pages like Instagram and Twitter and see who you know that follows him and unfollow them. You don't want people like that in your life. Hire more women, liberal women specifically, and most importantly, try to hire Black and brown women. Because we are letting these Republican women's husbands protect them to the grave, as they always have done. And for my gays, my everything, no more kitty cat for DL men. They deserve nothing. And please support small businesses, particularly Black and brown businesses. Thank you guys. Love you. Bye.
You can call me a pick-me or whatever. I don't really care. But my life would be astronomically better if men, specifically men who look like me, could not vote. Don't get me wrong, my life could be a hell of a lot worse, and I'm very privileged in most ways. But I think it's ridiculous that I have to work 5, occasionally 6 days a week just to have mediocre health insurance that would still cost me an arm and a leg, perhaps quite literally, if I ever needed to use it. And why are vision and dental insurance separate? Do you think I asked to be blind? Do you think this is fun for me? No, it's not. And I do all this just so I can afford a 2-bed, 2-bath, 1,000 square foot apartment in Fort Wayne, fucking Indiana. I did not ask to be part of that system. Do you think I want to be working at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday? No, I want to be out in nature. I want to be out in the woods. That's not about to be strip mined for copper that'll be used to supplement an ever-growing military that serves no further purpose other than to show the whole world how big our dick is. Do you think they care how big our dick is? No, only we care how big our dick is. And you know what? I don't think women would do this to me. Some would, but on average, no, they wouldn't. Men do this shit. I think we need to take the L on this because it would be a net benefit to everybody.
Maternal mortality rates amongst black women are exponentially higher in states with Republican-led abortion bans. As black men, our primary responsibility in this humanity is to protect black women.
Yes, indeed.
That's why we're here. And I think protecting black women begins and ends with listening to them about what makes them feel safe. And they overwhelmingly support the right to choose what happens with their body.
Yeah.
A majority of over 75 to 80%. I remember when Trump was president last, and my sister was living in Memphis. I'm from Chicago. There was a KKK rally in Memphis, Tennessee at the time. And I just remember how unable I felt to protect her. And that's a direct correlation to that becoming another possibility, just the emboldening of the people who seek to destroy us and to destroy our mothers, sisters, nieces, and the women in our lives. So I think that it's an issue of paramount importance to us and to me.
We're never supposed to live in a patriarchy, but a lot of people, especially men, don't understand what a matriarchy actually is. People think that a matriarchy would look like patriarchy, where women are in positions of power impressing the men, but no, instead think about a patriarchy is like a triangle where there's hierarchy. It's about power, it's about control, whereas a matriarchy would look like a circle because it's about connection and community and just fostering healing of everyone in that community.
You've been cultivating empathy and understanding, and you've been developing your own leadership skills to the point where you're secure in yourself and you're seeking a better balance with the way you relate to your partner and the world. Can that be found in a more matriarchal society? And I think the assumption we make as men is that matriarchy is just a patriarchal structure with women on the top instead of men. But that would be a man's definition of matriarchy, conceptualized within a patriarchal framework where power is made to be synonymous with domination, and domination is made to be synonymous with masculinity. And so we immediately resist adopting matriarchal structures due to an innate fear of being emasculated by them. But upon closer examination, matriarchal structures are more egalitarian. And instead of a vertical hierarchy, we see a society that's more horizontal, more communal. Because when you center women, you center life. You center spirituality. And these were all values that we possessed as indigenous people, but were lost due to the process of colonization.
Dang, indigenous TikTok is spicy, huh? All I'm gonna say is that we have been historically matriarchal societies following the leadership of our women and two-spirited individuals for a reason. Let's keep decolonizing and go back to that, shall we? Why are we holding men's opinions in such high regards? Why are so many of y'all disappointed when they show their true colors? Do you still trust men? Come on, y'all.